Okay. These dark circles on my eyes say something different, but I guess I'm sleeping okay. Fell asleep quick, woke up easily. Neck bothers me a little bit. I know I've been kind of complaining about my bed. I flipped it over, and I've noticed my wife's breathing has gotten kind of smoother, but I'm feeling my neck more. Anyway, so the topic today is, can I honor the fight against COVID if my mind is full of dishonorable thoughts? And so I'll be the vulnerable one and explain to you what I mean by dishonorable thoughts. So I often, in times of feeling low or uncertain, long for the failure of others and the failure of society so that I can be a leader and a hero. Ugh, just saying it out loud makes me want to just throw up. It's this, I guess it's a defense mechanism. It's this kind of default thinking pattern that shows up. And so if I see other people successful, I'm jealous. I find ways that what they're successful at doing is a fraud and that I'm really better at them, better than they are. It's pretty, I mean, it makes me kind of nauseous just to say it out loud. But it happens. And so it typically shows up when I'm feeling really vulnerable. Like when I'm feeling really uncertain. We've got some new projects going on, starting new kind of groups. There's a lot of pieces that haven't fallen into place, and then there are pieces that have fallen into place, but the mission hasn't started yet. So I feel a lot of worry and, am I doing this right, or is this good, or so in these ambiguous places, I'm often, not often, but because when I often do a lot of things that have never been done before, I've never done before, or I'm kind of creating. It's the creative process, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, and because I don't know how it's going to turn out, I get these experiences, and I understand that they're associated with wanting to do a good job. And so I think the place is pure, where they come from is pure, but the experience of the uncertainty is kind of like kind of in a shell, right? There's not a lot of there's a protective element about me. There's a closed in aspect, a tight, an armored up aspect, and I don't feel a lot of levity, and I just feel kind of a compression. And inside that compression, my thoughts are going. That story kind of kicks off, and it's a I don't like to talk about it, obviously, because it's awful. Wanting others to fail, wanting society to fail, to be a hero, that's awful. That said, I am aware of those thoughts as thoughts. I'm not aware of those thoughts as who I am. And so part of what I can do with that understanding is I can sit with it without letting it seep out into the world. And so it's just this kind of, it's like this ball of neurons in my brain that gets fired up when things are uncertain, and it starts to bounce around in my brain. And I'm attentive enough to know where it is and know that it's happening. But I'm also attentive enough to recognize that it's just it's that same ball of neurons bouncing around in there, that I don't add to it. And this is a point that I've made many, many times, and I think is worth always coming back to, is that if you put your attention on these things and give them story, then they become entrenched. And part of what it means to armor down is to untrench, to armor down, unarmor these stories that may be entrenched in your mind or in your thought process, and give you an opportunity to ask yourself, is this valuable? Is this useful? Is this something that I can use? Is this something that I want to use? Is this something that I want to kind of define myself with? And if it's not, then you don't have to. And the way you don't have to is by how you pay attention to it. Now, the hard part is kind of coming to that reality, getting to that question of, do I want this? And that's where the practice comes in. That's where paying attention comes in. You're always going to have to get to this stuff in the present moment. That's bell one. You're always going to have to do that. You're always going to have to get to this stuff in the present moment. Because if you're analyzing it in the past or you're analyzing it in the future, you're maintaining the story. So it's just a no-go. So you've always got to address this stuff from the perspective of the present moment. In the mindfulness world, the teachers describe this as non-judgmental present tense awareness. In the Zen world, this is described as interacting with no-mindedness, right? So the mind is the story. You interact with no-mindedness. In the Aikido world, this could be called emptiness, right? So there's these different ways of looking at this, but the main crux of it is the present moment. That's bell one. Bell two, getting familiar with the body and how the body responds, because the body is always processing your thinking as its beingness. So how the body's pumping blood, how the body's holding tension, how the body's releasing hormones, how the body is engaging muscles. All of that is predicated on what the mind is doing. So by understanding and connecting to your body regularly, learning how your body communicates, learning how to communicate to your body in a calm way, that's fundamental to managing this stuff. Now, bell three is how you can interact with it. So just because it's happening and you feel it, doesn't mean there's nothing you can do about it. Bell three is all about what you can do about it. Now, yesterday was full of this. And I deployed technique. And sometimes deploying technique will just wipe it out. And it's just amazing. You're just, oh, that's great. But other times, technique won't do much. And so instead, you just have to hold. You just have to be patient. You just have to kind of sit with it, kind of isolate it in its place, let it be there. Don't try to fight it. Just let it be there and wait it out. And typically a good night's sleep will knock it out. A good meal will knock it out. So you just have to kind of hold. And so that's what I did yesterday. I just held. I try not to make decisions or make moves when I'm in this space, and I did one. I made one move that I now kind of regret and wish I hadn't. But it's done, so it wasn't that big a deal. It was a minor move it was kind of a desperate move. It was like a Hail Mary move to like make everything fine. But that's the thing, when I'm in this place where it's all kind of a mess, any move I make from that place is not going to be coming from a place of clarity. Now, it doesn't mean it won't have some value. Like the move I made actually could shift my thinking about some stuff in a positive way, so that could be good. But I still typically try not to make moves from that space. So anyway, you can interact with it. Sometimes you can shift it, sometimes you can't, but that's bell three. But then bell four, okay? And this is where you want to really understand that dishonorable stuff going on inside your head, inside your mind, is not who you are completely. It's just a piece. And everyone's got this kind of piece. It's just part of what makes up the kind of the dualistic world where there's the kind of the light side of the experience and the dark side of the experience, and we've got them inside of us to give us the opportunity to choose. And so with Bell 4, you choose love, you choose compassion, you choose gratitude. And that always, always trumps in the experience. It always supersedes the kind of the individual, localized, dishonorable thinking, thought stuff. It's small, it's local, it's your own kind of spin on a capability associated with free will. Love, on the other hand, is universal, it's infinite, it's massive, it connects everyone to everyone. It's huge. So when you tap into that, it's like you're tapping into a river as opposed to getting caught up in the murkiness and yuckiness of a puddle, right? So the dishonorable thoughts are a puddle, right? It's a yucky puddle. Love is a giant, massive, flowing river. So you can put your attention on the puddle and be like, oh, I have this puddle. Oh, gosh, I'm such a bad person, da-da-da. Or you could tap into the river and be like, I'm connected to this universal stream of love. You see what I mean? So anyway, let's practice, right? Let's practice. Let's actually do the thing as opposed to just talking about it. And go get some coffee. All right, bell 1. I can feel how tired my eyes are, so I'm just going to shut them right away. Heater sounds. Mostly quiet. What does quiet sound like to you? What are the sounds in your direct environment? Are there any smells? Taste. What does your mouth feel like? Touch. What's the temperature feel like in the room you're in? If your eyes are open, or even if they're closed, just notice how light and shadow always has an expression. If you just look at the way, even behind closed eyelids, there's brighter areas and darker areas. You can get a feel for the experience of your ability to see right now. Putting your attention on sight. All of your senses take place in the present moment. It's not so much what sense you're paying attention to, it's the fact that you're paying attention to something taking place in the present moment that matters. Bell 2. Bell 2 shifts the attention to the body, calls your attention to the body. So notice your ground. If there's anything that's uncomfortable about your ground, feel free to change it. I've been using these pillows to kind of make the ground feel a little bit more comfortable, and sometimes I get it just right and other times I don't. So notice your ground. Can you make it more comfortable? If you can, do so. Move up to the pelvis, Just a couple little shifts in the pelvis just to kind of tap in and then settle on the middle. Where do you feel your pelvis kind of grounded and centered? Moving up to the core. Maybe you can notice the fabric of clothing at your core. Maybe it would feel good to kind of tighten the core up and let it out just to feel how your core's operating today. From your core, shift your attention to your heart space. Noticing shoulder blades, chest, weight of the arms. Moving up, throat space, jaw, base of the neck, nape of the neck, top of the head, long through the spine. Face. Soften the face. So if the spine is upright, the face is soft. If the spine is alert, the rest of your muscles, starting with your face, relaxed. Soften the eyes, soften the cheeks, soften the mouth. Then hack the vagus nerve with a smile. Maybe make a big smile. Maybe put like a little laugh behind it, like, yeah. Oh man, you're just human. Ugh. Oh boy. You know, humble yourself a little bit. Throw a little smile on there, and we'll move into bell 3. Without doing anything to your breath, notice its location. Now change the location. So if you feel your breath down low, see if you can feel it up high. If you feel it up high, shift it down low. But notice the ability to shift the location of where you feel how you're breathing. Next, change the intensity of your breath. So change how quick your breath is moving. So try taking a quick breath in and a really slow breath out. And notice how you can do that. Now take a really slow, quiet, calm breath in and a quick, hard, fast breath out. Maybe one more. Blow out through the mouth. Take a normal inhale, exhale. Now let's study the direction of the breath. See if you can make your breath go up and down. See if you can feel your breath traveling up and down on the inhale and the exhale. Now think of your belly bellowing forward and out and then coming back on the exhale. So the belly pushes out on the inhale and the belly comes back to the spine on the exhale. So forward and backwards. The direction of the breath is forward and backwards. Good. Now try side to side. If you visualize your sides and imagine your sides moving as you breathe, you'll probably be able to feel your sides moving as you breathe. Nice. Now, think about depth. So part of what you're feeling when you're breathing is the muscles that move your diaphragm, moving to account for how your diaphragm is expanding. And how your diaphragm is expanding is based off of how you're thinking. So your participation is driving the changes here. So what I want you to try to pay attention to is deep, real deep breath. So try to take your breath down, really deep into the body. See how deep your breath can get, and just notice how deep you can go. See if you can breathe all the way down to your bottom. The bottom of your body is pulling the breath in. Now last one, size. How big of a breath can you create? And I want you to notice the parts of your body that move. And especially notice if you can expand out on the inhale, feel the parts that move, and then as you exhale, feel the body settling in, flowing from an expansion to a contracting back into a normal kind of setup. So do about 3 of those. Nice work. Sit for a moment and you'll hear a 4th bell. So shift from kind of the self, working on self, to the self acknowledging all the things that have enabled you to be who you are. And it may be a moment thing, like the walls of your building, the heat, the fact that you have a legal document that gives your ability to stay where you are status. The way that our communities are organized and structured legally, and that those laws are organized and structured and backed up, and ultimately backed up by people just like you on the front lines, willing to do whatever's necessary to maintain this structure, this order. And so you exist inside of that structure. So it's not all you. There's so much going on that supports and enables you to be yourself. One way to look at this is grace. Another way to look at this is hope realized. So these are all frameworks from where your gratitude can be situated. And so when you tap into your gratitude and you acknowledge the fullness of your life beyond what you're capable of, you're tapping into this larger thing. So there's a selflessness part to this. It's a letting go of the kind of structure, formatic identification with who you are, and acknowledging that who you are and how you are and that you are is predicated and dependent upon other things. And you acknowledge that through gratitude. That's a heart-opening thing. When you let go of the kind of the self, the story, and acknowledge the bigness, that's really when your heart taps in to the thing that connects it and you to everything else. Imagine each little thing or each big thing that you're grateful for is an accumulation of positivity, or accumulation of goodwill, an accumulation of love, an accumulation of whatever you imagine is kind of significant, valuable, light. And once you shift that from yourself, gratitude around the way life has supported you, and now offer it to those who may be struggling. This is compassion, acknowledging the suffering of others and offering your goodwill in support of their suffering and their healing. And during the pandemic, this is how we really can honor the fight. We have thanks for all the blessings that we have that enable us to be safe and not on the front lines. And we honor those that are by sending them in our minds and with our hearts, our goodwill and our appreciation, acknowledging the challenges that they're facing in order for the whole, the greater good, to move forward. Finish with 2 breaths. The second exhale finishes your practice. So I hope you see your attention as something that you cultivate, manage, and deploy throughout your day. And so maybe, something shows up in your head and you're like, gosh, that's just the worst. Well, the fact that you noticed it is a positive step. That means it's not just happening, running behind the scenes, driving you. So that's good. Second thing is see where it shows up in your body. Lots of times there's just a little bit of comfort that you can create that, will shift that kind of, that gear stuck in kind of yuck. And then you got your breathing. Your breathing is especially helpful when interacting with other people while in that kind of mindset. You can take a breath, you can concentrate on the breath, put your attention on the breath if the whirlwind of thought is a little bit too big. And then ultimately recognize that you can tap into and pay attention to love. You can do it through gratitude, you can do it through compassion, you can do it through patience, you can do it through a hug. There's all kinds of ways to kind of break up these patterns because they suck. They really do. But just part of it. You can handle it. All right. See you tomorrow.